Hello and welcome to Reality TV Cringe. I am one of your hosts, Delia, and I'm here with my real tight homegirl and my daughter-in-law, the beautiful, the effervescent Beatrice.
Hi.
We are here to talk the latest episode of Sister Wives,
Yeah.
and this one is a bit more serious than we are typically used to, and we'll get into all of that. But before we do, we have to issue you our standard disclaimer, which is hide your wife and hide your kids. This is a politically incorrect podcast. We have stupid opinions
Objectively.
and sometimes we're vulgar.
Yeah.
And so if you're sensitive,
Why are you here? We warn you every week.
You might want to find yourself another dumpster.
Bye.
But if you're here to get into the sister wives of it all, welcome to this dumpster.
And if you like what we do over here, please be sure to follow us on the Instagram at Reality TV Cringe and join us on Patreon, patreon.com/realitytvcringe. We are wrapping up our content of a 1,000-pound best friends and couples therapy with Dr. Orna. And we have ad-free stuff over there and uncensored. It's amazing.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And if you are watching on YouTube, please do not forget to like and comment and share and subscribe, as every little thing you do helps us to grow in the algorithm. And when we're growing, we are scaling that mountain to 6,000 subscribers. So thank you in advance.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is Sister Wives Season 19. We are on episode 23 entitled
The Stars Will Fall from the Sky.
And this is a reference to the passing of Garrison. And so maybe a trigger warning is appropriate. We are going to be talking about the passing of Garrison. This is the episode in which we discuss Garrison's passing, how it happened, and how it has affected the family. Now, do you have any takeaways that you want to talk about at the top, or?
Oh, this episode made me cry.
Yeah.
It was sad.
Yeah, my main thought was that I did not appreciate how this episode was constructed. I think this subject called for an entire episode, and I think I saw Nikki's husband, I think his name is John, Nikki Haverstock's husband, say, like, we can have a whole, 4-episode special for Christine's wedding, but we can't have one dedicated episode for Garrison's passing, make it make sense. And it doesn't make sense. And I absolutely echo that sentiment. I think we should have set aside some real time to talk about it, but we didn't. Instead, we had, a scene with Christine and a scene with Mary, which I will go over very quickly, but I really wish that production had done it a little differently.
Yeah, I will never understand their decisions with this kind of stuff. I thought Mary and Christine's parts in this were not important, like in this episode. I mean, like, they may have been fine in some of the other episodes in the season, but like they were just not really needed right here. Like, I don't give a fuck about Lizzie's heritage inn being closed.
No.
I don't really give a fuck about Christine and David having petty little arguments like every other married couple does. Like, that's cool. That's great.
Right.
But like, we're having a really serious conversation and a really sad episode talking about Garrison's passing. But I am glad that they finally addressed it. And I'm glad that they did actually cover him in an episode, even though it wasn't a full length one. I'm glad that they covered him and they talked about him, and we got to hear from other members of the family too.
Yeah, and I was happy that we got to see him because they had completely erased him out of the entire season. So we know that he participated in some of the things, and yet we never got to see Garrison. And so just seeing some photographs and him with his family or doing the things that he loved, I thought was really very meaningful.
Yeah.
So let me just very quickly run through the top of the episode. We open with Christine. She has invited some of her friends and family over to the home in Salt Lake City. And it seems like a nice festive time. I think this entire segment was sort of set up to show us that Christine is assimilating into a regular type of relationship, a monogamous relationship. And she has previous to this, and certainly while married to Kody, been the one to kind of call the shots in the home life. Like her kids listened to her, to Christine, not necessarily to Kody. She was the one who made the rules. She was the one who did all of the parenting for the most part. But now that she is married with David, she has to be a partner.
Yeah.
And that's actually different for her. So she has to adjust and figure out how to do that. She is loving the process. This is illustrated through a little scene with David where he's kind of defiant to Christine because Christine doesn't want him to climb over a very rickety fence, plastic fence, which looks like it's going to fall down. And she doesn't want her grandkids to see that it's possible to do that. And so she's telling David, who's going to go climb the fence to go get something on the other side, she's telling him not to do that. But it's not in David's nature to not do what he wants to do. And so he does it anyway. And Christine, again, is not used to this because up to this point, everybody's just done what Christine has said. But David is his own man, and he shows up in this relationship in his own way. And so this was a demonstration of that. And he's his own person, meeting her where she is 100% and her 100%. And this is a new union for Christine, and we love to see her in it.
Yeah.
The second scene was with Mary, and she's at the haunted B&B with Jen. They've had their final guests at the B&B, which is interesting. And Mary is currently kind of creating a new vision for the space. She wants it to not necessarily be like a B&B, but rather a small events space where people can have little shindigs, and she's going to have a professional kitchen and things like that. And so she's excited about that. She's able to bring out her Lizzie's Heritage Inn tablecloth or something. I don't know. She's just happy about this new chapter. And she's also talking about what she's looking forward to in her dating life. Mm-hmm. And she references having potentially met some folks out on the dating scene who were a little put off by her past, I guess specifically with regard to polygamy, but also with regard to her fame and her public notoriety, which is the problem I think that happened with Amos.
Yeah.
I think so many of the audience members started to get involved and really curious about Amos and started posting about it and interfering with their relationship, which may have been the thing that split them apart. And so she very, in a roundabout way, addresses this. But what Mary wants is to find a man. She wants to find a man. She wants to do what she wants to do in the B&B, and she wants to live her life. And we love this for her. And then we get this scene of Mary on the couch, and she's being interviewed, presumably about all of this stuff that's going on in her life right now. And she gets a phone call from Kody.
Yeah.
And she's like, Cody's calling me.
And she ignores it.
And she ignores it because she's like, I don't want to talk to Kody. Mm-hmm. But then he calls right back.
She ignores it again.
She does text him and says, I presume, something like,
I'm recording.
Hey, I'm in the middle of stuff. Like, I'm recording. We're doing interviews. And then he texts her right back and says, it's an emergency.
Yeah.
So she calls him.
Yeah.
And some people might say it's advantageous that we get to see the actual moment when she hears that it's on camera. Like, I don't necessarily see it that way, but like we do happen to see the moment when Mary hears the news from Kody that Garrison has passed and that he has killed himself.
Yeah.
And you can see it on Mary's face. It's this earthquake, vibrational energy moment where you hear that kind of news.
Yeah.
And she excuses herself. And then we kind of go through scene after scene of the various people, including some of the kids, and how they react to this news.
Yeah, and this is why I didn't really like Mary and Christine's segments in this, because Mary's segment was filmed after all of this had happened, because you can tell, like, Mary's thinner, she looks nice, and it's definitely...
You mean Mary's segment at the B&B?
Yes. Okay. She's completely different looking than the segment that we have just after that, which is Mary getting the call that Garrison has passed away. And so I'm just like, okay, this is kind of cobbled together, but like whatever. And when we go through everyone's initial reactions to this horrible, tragic loss, like everybody has like quite normal reactions. Like we have Mary, who's visibly emotional, which we don't really see her cry very often. We don't see her really let her walls down. She's always very guarded and everything. And so it was interesting to me to see her get emotional. And I actually appreciated that. I wish Mary would be more vulnerable. And then we have Christine, obviously visibly upset. I mean, she was one of the main like mothers, like she was homeschooling all of these kids, very involved in Garrison and all of the kids' lives. Not that Mary wasn't, but you know what I mean. And then we have Janelle, visibly upset and wrecked because this is her child, her biological child. And then we have scenes with Gabe, which I was very surprised that we included Gabe in all of this, because Gabe was the one that found Garrison's body. And you can just see in his eyes that he is forever changed. And then we have a scene with like Maddie and Caleb where she's talking about how the thing that has changed her brain chemistry, or would change your brain chemistry as a person, is being a sibling and having to call all of your other siblings and give the news that one of your siblings has passed away. And I felt that that was like very poignant, that we have her scene and then we show Gabe. Like, he's visibly changed. His brain, talk about brain chemistry being changed, of seeing his brother dead and finding him and kind of talking about it. And I just, man, it was really emotional. It was really heavy.
It was. And I was taking notes for this episode and I was just like, I don't really know what to write down, because I just think we should talk about some of the main themes that they discussed. Obviously, the huge impact to the family. And, you know, we did see Gabe. I think seeing Gabe was very emotional for me, just because he's such a tender-hearted young man.
Yeah.
And I think he was in particular very close with Garrison. They had a unique bond. And so it was really sweet and heartbreaking to have him talking about Garrison and how Garrison was so empathetic and that he felt things so deeply, and that he was also somebody who brought peace into a situation and just made people feel good about themselves. And I think he says something like, you know, that's a real gentleman, or something like that. That's the mark of a real gentleman. And, you know, then we have Christine talking about Garrison and hearing the news and just some of the memories of Garrison. We see pictures of him like playing with fire, or not playing with fire, but like he loved to build fires, and he loved to be out in the stars, and he loved to travel, and he loved his family, you know, and he loved these things in his life. And we have Janelle also talking very directly and frankly, which I appreciated, about Garrison's struggle with alcohol.
Yes.
And revealing something that we did not know, which is that Garrison struggled also with anxiety and depression. And that, I guess, during COVID, things got pretty acute. And we know that during COVID, like, this is when the family truly started to come apart. And so I'm sure that affected Garrison in a certain kind of way. And so he started in COVID to drink a little bit more than he maybe should. And Janelle describes it as he would binge from time to time with alcohol when he was trying to cope. And so on the night that this happened, he was drinking, maybe he was binging, but he had been talking with Janelle.
Yep.
It sounds like they talked a lot. You know,
multiple times a day.
And Janelle's in contact with her kids. She's talking to Maddie multiple times a day. Like, she is really involved in that way. And so she had been talking to him, and he sounded like he wasn't doing that well. It appears that everybody in the family that cared, I don't know if I should say it that way, but that was proactive in the relationships is what I mean. But everyone in the family who was proactive knew that Garrison was in a season of struggle in his life.
Yes.
So, you know, Janelle mentioned to Gabe and to Hunter, hey, can you check on Garrison? Like, would you call him? Would you just let me know that he's okay? She goes to bed that night, and then she gets the call from Gabe that he went over there to check on Garrison and found him to be deceased.
Yeah, and apparently this drinking habit that Garrison had found himself in was something where, like, he would have a binge night and he would have gone ghost a little bit, but then he would always like respond later, like a few hours later when he maybe sobered up or in the morning or whatever. And so Janelle recounts this as like, you know, I thought that he would pull himself out of it. I thought that he would be okay. And like, we have a scene with Christine where, I mean, I pretty much the whole family like knew Garrison was struggling and knew Garrison was sad, and that they gave him all of the support and love that they could, and they wanted to be there for him, and they all kind of thought that he would pull out of it, or that he would get better, or that maybe he would stop drinking. And then the night that this happened, like, it was a complete and utter shock, just like it was for all of us normies outside of the family, you know, that didn't know him personally but watched him grow up on TV. Like, it was a complete and utter shock. And so it was interesting to me to have them talk so frankly about this and to shed more light onto the struggles that Garrison was having, because when all of this happened last year, like, a lot of us were like, oh my God, like, I had no idea, because we didn't know.
Why would we? Yeah.
You know, why would we know what's going on in somebody's internal, you know, space? But it just made me really sad for Garrison, and made me really sad for his struggles. And like, alcohol is one of those things that, I mean, they call it a spirit for a reason. Like, it can kind of take over you, and it's just really unfortunate that all of this happened and took Garrison from this world and from his family and everything. Like, and I want to be very careful with what I say during the rest of this episode, because I don't want to put any kind of blame on anyone in the family for Garrison's suicide. But I had some issues with how Kody and Robyn were reacting to it.
Okay.
Because we have interstitials with Robyn and Kody talking about when they found out about Garrison's passing. And in my opinion, I felt like Robyn's were particularly insincere. I don't think I don't want to say she didn't care, but like, I just didn't see any tears. You know, it's Robyn Brown. Like, we never really see her cry. There were moments where I thought Kody was sincere. And I mean, this is his son that he lost. And he's like talking about how when he found out, he was just in complete and utter shock. And he talks about like going to the funeral home and like just saying sorry over and over again to like everybody in the family, I guess, or like everybody around him, just constantly saying, I'm sorry. And I guess he was even consoling some of his kids. Apparently, it's what he said. He was calling some of his children and consoling them.
Gwendolyn came over.
Gwendolyn, who was very troubled by this, as anybody would be. And Kody recounts like when he had like a moment to himself, I guess, or like in his room, and the weight of this actually sat on him. Like, he just wailed and was devastated. And I felt that. I felt like that was sincere. I feel like any parent, no matter how flawed, would feel the devastating loss of like losing their child. But near the end, when he starts talking about his pilgrimage to bring Garrison's body back to Wyoming, I just felt like it was turning back into him and his wants and his desires, instead of reflecting on Garrison's life and reflecting on how he wasn't really around, allegedly, the last few years for Garrison. I don't know. What did you think about it?
Well, I'd like to offer a counterpoint concerning Robyn, because I think at this point that Robyn is very conscious of any tear that she might cry, because she knows that everybody watches and looks for the tears. And so I would imagine she's probably even got some anxiety about the level of emotion that she is able to demonstrate, you know? And so I think she's so guarded. I felt that she, like in her interstitials on the couch, I felt that she was really buttoned up, almost as if she was intimidated to be her actual self. But that didn't mean to me that she wasn't feeling something. I think she was. She doesn't feel safe. I hate to say that, but she doesn't feel safe to show the scope and the scale of what she's actually going through in her process, because she'll be ridiculed for it. People will pick it apart. People will call it disingenuous. And so I can see how she would appear more cold in that way. Okay. So I just want to offer that as a counterpoint. Secondarily, I thought when she was talking with Kody out by the fire, outside of the McMansion, that she was probably more indicative of who she is in this relationship, just like holding space for Kody, witnessing what Kody was going through, and just kind of being a helpmeet or a friend to him. I didn't mind Robyn here. I would have loved to see more from Robyn, as I did from Mary, and as I did from Janelle and from Christine. But she's just not that kind of person. And that could be because she's got something going on psychologically, like a pathology of some sort, or she just didn't know how to do that. As it concerns Kody, I was surprised at the things that he admitted to. I imagined him at the funeral home apologizing to his children that were there.
Yeah.
It sounds like that was a moment in which he was confronted with what he has done.
Right.
And this is the result of some of that behavior. And I'm sorry, I'm riding the lightning of blame. I'm talking about what he said, though.
Right.
He's apologizing. And as he's sitting out there with Robyn and talking about all of the moments he never had.
And the what ifs.
And how people are like, don't get caught up in the what ifs. And he's like, no, I need to sit in the what ifs. I need to think about these things because maybe I'm giving him a little bit too much grace here, but like sounds like he's saying my behavior led to the absence of all these different experiences I could have had with Garrison. And he even references COVID and how, all of the problems and fighting that happen around COVID are so unimportant.
Yeah.
And these are the reflections of someone who has just tragically lost somebody.
Right.
These are the things that you literally do think about. And it felt to me that to the degree that he could, he was trying to sit with the ownership of his part in that. It felt to me that like, and notice I said to the degree that he can.
Right.
I do think that he doesn't have the capacity for that. Compared to the rest of us or a lot of other people. But like for him, it felt like he was in the process of that. And I'm sure he's probably also very conscious to the cameras and how many people hate him out here in these streets. But I don't know. I felt like I saw like an actual person that I didn't hate.
Yeah.
A dad who lost his child. And when he was talking about taking Garrison home to Wyoming, like I felt that though. And yeah, it did become about his pilgrimage and it did become about him and his process, but we're the ones left behind and we have to figure out that process. So there's something very legitimate and valid about that as well.
Yeah. And like that was my thing with Kody is that like I didn't hate him as much in this episode. And I thought that for the most part, his feelings were like genuine. And I also don't want to like pick apart people's grief processes because I think everybody grieves differently. And like with your point about Robyn, maybe you are right with her being buttoned up, but to me, it didn't feel like she was coming off cold because she was guarding herself. To me, it felt like she was still trying to portray some level of emotion to us to make us think that she cared more than she did.
I can see how you would think that.
And that's kind of like my perspective on it. And like maybe I'm bitter because I don't like Robyn and I will cop to that. And like maybe I'm perceiving her reactions to be colder than what they actually are. And again, I don't want to like shit on people's grieving processes because, not everybody cries. Not everybody expresses their grief in a very open way. Sometimes it's always just behind closed doors. Like nobody will see you cry. Nobody will see you express this kind of stuff. With Kody, the thing that bothered me really was at the end when he was talking about the pilgrimage because it became more about what he wanted. And this is the only thing that I wanted is just to bring my kid home. But I understand the sentiment with it because he talked about the importance of bringing him home where they had family buried out there. And I think that that's completely fair and valid. And like, of course he would want to bring his kid home. And I found the sentiment of that. And to your point about to the degree of Kody, what Kody can express of like his acknowledgement for his behavior or his regret for how things happened. I could see like a glimmer of that in him when he was talking about like what could have been. And he thought that he had more time. Like I really felt that like maybe we're giving him a lot of grace here too. Like maybe he feels like they could have worked things out eventually. Like they could have had more time. I think
he was expecting that they would.
And they would. And then now he doesn't. And he talked about that. Like there's no resolution. There's no reconciliation. Like I don't get to say goodbye. And I think like underneath all of that is him being like, I didn't even get to like say sorry. And I didn't even really get to communicate to him that I cared and that I love him. And I think Kody deep down loves his kids. But he's a broken man and he doesn't know how to initiate those relationships with his kids, or not initiate, but what's the word? Maintain. He doesn't really know how to like reach out and
nurture,
manage. Yes, and be the
Mhm.
bigger person and like be the mature parent in these kinds of
Mhm.
situations. Like he lets his petty grievances around the wives dictate his relationships with his kids.
Mhm.
And no parent is perfect. I'm sure we all can relate to that. We all come from our various backgrounds and stuff, and so I can have compassion for him for that. And I don't want to be too critical, because he did just lose his kid. And I do
Mhm.
believe that rocked him. And we do even have a scene where he's in his workroom and you see this giant photo of
Mhm.
Garrison, like right in front of there in his workroom. And people on Reddit actually have sleuthed, and that scene was most likely filmed in their new McMansion.
Oh, really?
Based on the view from the window and everything. It's a
Mhm.
different scene. His hair is also thinner, so you can tell that it's like a newer scene as
I
opposed.
didn't know how to feel about that.
Why?
Because I don't know if this is the episode to talk about it.
Did you feel like it was performative?
Kind of. I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to say it. I'll say it at another time.
I hear you.
I wondered about it, but at the same time, especially if they're in their new house and he's going through the process of grieving, like this is what he wants to connect with, and this is how he does it. It's almost like an altar of sorts. So, I mean, I'm just going to leave it there, and maybe at a later time I'll feel more comfortable to talk more openly about that. But, I felt for him as a parent.
Yeah.
And no parent wants to ever have to deal with that.
Of course not.
And then we pan over to Janelle, who is in North Carolina visiting with her sister.
This part got me. This is what made me cry.
Carrie, was that her name? Who looks a lot like her.
Yeah.
And they're in the kitchen, and it's sometime in the summer right after he passed, because they're talking about Savannah going to school in August or something, or somebody's going to do something in August. I forget. So it's pretty fresh and it's pretty new. And so her sister is there visiting, and I just really related to Janelle in this because I'm a lot like her emotionally, like how I regulate emotionally. Like as soon as it kind of comes up, I like take a moment, and I don't want it to come up. I don't want to show that to anybody. I feel very vulnerable expressing my emotions in that way. So I just really could feel how much she was struggling. She's talking a lot about how important it is for her to stay busy. And it's good that she's in North Carolina because her grandbabies are there, and they've got the new farm, and they've got all these things that are going on, and she's got a new vision, and she can work on that. And in doing so, doesn't have to focus and even fixate on Garrison, who she says, like, sometimes she forgets that he's even dead, like she'll be living her life as if he's not, and then like come into the clarity of the epiphany that, oh, he is dead. And like, that's a shock in that moment. Like, oh my God, he's dead. Like I can't imagine, because I've lived through similar things, but I really felt her in these scenes, and with her talking in her interstitials just about everything. I just wanted to give her such a big hug. And I feel like as much as we laugh and as much as we take the piss out of these people, as much as we get in their ass about stuff, like at the end of the day, we are all connected because we care. A lot of us really actually do care. And a lot of us are mad because we care, And a lot of us are here just because we still care. So I care about Janelle.
Yeah.
And I care about Christine and Mary. And I care also about Kody.
Yeah. I care about all of them. It's like
I care about Robyn. I mean,
I don't, but like
I care about the kids.
Yeah, it's like I would care more about Robyn if she was more authentic and if she wasn't like always lying in every single episode.
I care about Robyn's impact on the family.
Right. Yes, I care about that. And this scene with Janelle and her sister was just like so sad to me, because it's just like it's the silent acknowledgement that they're both feeling the loss. Like they both like tear up at a particular point, and like Janelle's like just doing her best to keep it together and like keep it together on camera, and even for her sister, because she's having a hard time like being emotional, and she talks about like having to stay busy so that way she doesn't feel it. And I feel like a lot of us can relate to that. Like I'm like that too. Like I'm a pretty expressive person, but when it's like really hard emotions like that, I'm like that. I'm like, I just have to keep busy because I don't want to feel it right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with it. So that scene was really hard emotionally for me. And just like, I just felt them all.
Yeah.
It was just really sad. And then we had like a scene, I don't remember what part it was at, but where Mary talked about when she got the news, she like immediately called up Janelle and was like, I'm coming over. I'm bringing food and I'm coming over. And that part got to me too. I'm like, man, for all of Mary and Janelle's struggles, like with their relationship and how like Mary has been mean in the past, like she comes through for Janelle in this moment and is like there for her and just being supportive, because this was her kid too. This was Christine's kid too. Yeah. And it was just, I don't know, after 23 episodes of this season, I'm glad that we like finally talked about it. I'm glad we finally talked about Garrison. I'm glad that we got to see some like real emotion from the family. Because it just reminds all of us that they're real people.
Yeah. And
like, even though they make fools out of themselves on TV all the fucking time, they're real people, and we all can relate to losing somebody that's important. Not everybody has an experience with suicide or a family member who has committed suicide, but like we all know what it's like to lose somebody who means a lot to us. And so this was just a really heavy episode.
Yeah.
It was just a really heavy episode.
Yep. Sorry.
I know.
Yeah. You know, on a personal note, my husband's father committed suicide.
Yeah.
At the end of 2020.
Yep.
In the same way that Garrison did.
Yeah.
He was a Vietnam veteran and he had, you know, his struggles and issues, but like that phone call that Mary got is like the phone call that my husband got, and just like the waves of energy over her face and just like the shock of that moment. But it doesn't even have to be suicide. It's just the loss of somebody that you deeply, deeply love. And even in the healthiest of relationships, when you lose somebody that you love, you always wonder like, oh God, could I have shown them love more? Could I have made more time? Oh, if I just took those calls, you know, it's just like all of the things you beat yourself up over when they're gone. It's just like, that's why it was important to do this. That's why I wish they would have done it a bit differently, so that we could have really had a moment of celebration of Garrison, and also just kind of a sacred space for us all to just feel that together wherever we are and relate it back to ourselves, and then also connect it back to them. I just wish that it had been produced in a different way. Yeah. But nonetheless, I am grateful that we got what we got, and that beloved young man. I mean, just such a good young man. And there's so many people in the world, and you really just don't know what people are going through. And just even, especially these folks on television. I remember like when the Vanderpump Scandal was happening, I'm just like, yeah, what Tom Sandoval did was terrible, but like, I'm very worried about this person right now. And some of the it's intense on social media, and like what people do and what people say. And like, you just go up on Mary's Instagram right now when she posts, and just the people like comment after comment, just being mean and dragging them. And it's just like, it's pretty terrible. Yeah. And so I definitely, I felt this episode, and I just feel like we should leave it right there. Like there's a lot of other things that we could pick apart and say and like question, but like why it's not appropriate. Not right now, at least. It's not appropriate. And so we don't want to do that. And we want to be respectful. And I realize we're very disrespectful generally. Yeah. All the time. Yeah. But we're real people. I'm a mom. Yep. You're a daughter. You've lost folks in your family. I've lost folks in my family. You've probably lost folks in your family. And it's tough no matter what. Yep. So is there anything else that we should say to these beautiful raccoons before we get up on out of here, Beatrice? Well, if you love our podcast and how stupid we are all the time, please go to your favorite podcast platform and leave us a glowing 5-star review. Really helps support the podcast so we can grow and get fatter. We really appreciate it. So thank you. We will continue the conversation, sister wives, polyfamily, all of that stuff. Until then, until we come back, please do not forget that we have nothing but love for you, and peace out. Bye. Bye, guys.